Good morning, good morning. It is 9 a.m. on a Sunday. I don't know what the hell everybody was on last night, yesterday, Saturday. I was having a really amazing, wonderful, calm day with my son and my husband, and all of a sudden I wake up today at like 6 a.m. and everybody is doing something crazy, actual crazy. Today we're going to be watching the Disgruntled Person's new video that they were talking about like a few weeks ago, literally the week, maybe it's a day or a few days before I uploaded my video. They created a community post talking about how they were in works with other people, other commentators, and we're planning on actually responding to all of the hatred. And the video has come out. I haven't watched it. I got one comment though on my last video. Hold on, let me pull it up because I really did like it. It said, a month later, you should see that BS disgruntled person posted today. 2 hours. I didn't watch it, just to double down on her previous thoughts. The comments trying to blame the left for Trump winning. Ridiculous. And listen, I've seen that talking point from a lot of leftists on TikTok, especially during election season. This was 2 years ago at this point, during election season, because Kamala Harris unfortunately did lose the election. There was a lot of talks about how the leftists in general should probably, lower their priorities and, double down because Kamala Harris was a staunch CPAC receiver. CPAC is, this corporation that gives politicians money, and most of the time, if not all the time, CPAC really just enforces that the politician, aligns to a certain ideology, and that one of the main points is that they should be pro-Israel. And a lot of leftists, if you didn't know, are not pro-Israel. So there was a lot of conversation. There was a lot of talk of like whether Kamala Harris was the right option as president, was the right candidate at all. Part of me believes that Kamala Harris should have won the election. Another part of me disagrees with telling people who to vote for and why they should vote for X person. That's just my opinion. People can do whatever the hell they want. I will also like to add on that the right has done a really amazing job when it comes to propaganda. They have been able to relate with specifically young men, and in turn, that sort of has guided a lot of women that want to create relationships with these young men that believe in, the core values of family and whatnot. Again, I cannot sit here and say that I don't agree that the Democratic Party shouldn't have done more for Kamala Harris and, in turn try and, get the message out that she was the better option compared to Donald Trump. But I also can't sit here and say that leftists or people in general should abandon their ideals when it comes to human rights. Right. So to clarify, I am free Palestine. So let's get that thing clear. So if this comment was anywhere near close to the truth, which I want to hope that it isn't, because that's actually such a shit take to have right now, 2 years after the election, 2 years after Trump has completely decimated the economy of this country, and 2 years after this man has literally done everything to undo years of environmental conservatism, of everything, bro. Like, after the pandemic, Joe Biden was actually trying to better the country, and you can see that, like, during Trump's first year, that's all Biden economic resolutions. Like, that's all things that happened during the past administration that unfortunately Trump did take ownership of. Whatever. I'm not going to get into that, because if we're going to get into politics, we're going to be here. Actually, no, we might get into politics because clearly we're already here. I'm going to be watching the video live reacting to it right now. I'm going to be watching the video in 2 times speed, and we're going to see what the heck, because the last video was already bad enough. I don't get it. I think they're gonna be going like step by step what they went wrong and whatnot. Right over here, homeschooling and revising my analysis. Let's watch it. I This is such a ugh. All people are really asking for the disgruntled person to do is to take the video down. That's all. You know? Not even make an apology video, just take it down. And they did. For a hot second, they were like, yeah, they privated the video, they took AdSense off. But when I watched the video, I remember getting mid-roll ads. And one thing that a lot of YouTubers say is that YouTube, and YouTube does do this, by the way. They put a video, I believe, at the very beginning of an ad at the very end, because YouTube still wants to get some revenue off of it, right? Um, but the creator doesn't get any revenue. When there are mid-roll ads, it means that the creator is earning some sort of revenue from the video. My personal opinion, I honestly would have been a lot more, okay with whatever the hell the disgruntled person did if they took the video down, made like maybe an 8-minute apology video where they said, oh yeah, I did this wrong, I did that wrong, I am sorry. Not a, and just like, I will try to do better next time. Easy. 8 minutes. You can do that in 8 minutes. I wouldn't even be mad if that apology video like did have AdSense on. But this is so boring.
Deep longing to have children, whilst she struggled with infertility. She grew up in a small town. Her family was Christian, and she had suffered the loss of her mother at 16 years old. Her name is Kristi. Kristi believed in God, and she loved the kids she met at church, but by the time she was 19, she felt like a bit of an outsider. She waged a war against her body to try to fit in with what her community and her husband wanted. From 2011 to 2013, Kristi tried countless diets and medical interventions to make herself skinny and to make herself fertile. This was going to be her whole life. She didn't want to go to university, she just wanted to have kids. But after juice cleanses, fasting, raw veganism, she didn't get kids. She got chronic pain instead. So Kristi took her chronic pain and she grieved the loss of her dream of motherhood. And she started a beauty channel. She wasn't an expert at makeup, but she didn't need to be. She was creative and she was talented. And her husband was earning enough money that she could follow her dreams. She worked with wildlife because she loved animals and she made YouTube videos. Kristi was funny, irreverent, and honest, and within 5 years she had hundreds of thousands of followers. And she was making good money. Sometimes she even traveled for work, attending conventions or influencer events, some in LA and some overseas. But she was never going to move out of Washington, and she knew it. She liked her small town, she liked the small life, she liked the community vibe. But what exactly was the small town vibe? The way Kristi described it was idyllic, in no small part because she said the community there was friendly. According to Kristi, they were good people. But who exactly was Kristi in community with?
Although the so-called Christian patriot movement as a whole is not characterized by a commitment to terrorist violence, the potential for violence by elements within the movement is always present.
In 1844, Washington, Idaho, and some parts of Montana were part of Oregon, and Oregon began passing laws known as the Oregon Black Exclusion Laws. They swiftly and effectively punished.
You're going to have to forgive me. I'm going to skip. I do not give a shit. I live in the United States. I see racism pretty much all the fucking time. I don't think people that were actually giving you the criticism about racism, about living in the United States, need a fucking step-by-step, this is what white supremacism is. Nobody that actually gives a shit about having good and insightful discussions need this. This is just filler. In my opinion, this is just filler. And in a way, avoiding talking about what you did wrong. Because if I'm going to be 17 minutes in, almost 18 minutes in, waiting for you to actually begin to address what the fuck you did wrong and how you plan on doing better next time, you lost me. You really lost me. This is so stupid. I'm gonna go and start from minute 56:03 because this is gonna be a whole like analysis into where they went wrong in their investigation and their research. And I know where you went wrong. I know why you're wrong. I just want you to address this stupid thing.
in culture even. Anyway, let me wrap this part of the video up. Okay, this is the last bit of our story from the Book of Kristi, so let's get into it. So we return once again to 2024 and Homeschoolgate. When Kristi finally made her response 1 year later, she said that she was protecting people with her silence. You see, dear listener, it's not a simple story, because Kristi's community members were doxxed and harassed, and their sense of safety was compromised. And Kristi said her reasoning for not speaking earlier was to protect these people from more harassment. Interesting. As it stands now, Kristi is still making videos. She has a small but growing following, many of whom seem to be a little conservative themselves, and many others who don't seem to care. The sad truth is that Kristi hasn't changed that much over her 15-year career. She's still trying desperately to lose weight. She still believes a lot of things that aren't true. She still lives in her small town. In this first part of my video, I've explored how Washington's history of white supremacy has influenced the myopic Christian nationalist population of the state, and the way that Kristi's actions in starting a homestead reflected not only this history of anti-black racism, but also the continual erasure of indigenous peoples in America. I've also situated Kristi's political opinions in the framework of crunchy conservatism, even though she doesn't identify with this ideology, because if I learned anything from those first two sections, is that we do have to read between the lines sometimes. One thing I haven't focused on in this video is the fact that Kristi's life has been characterized by fear, shame, and pain. These are the perfect emotions for right-wing propaganda. I focused on this in my original video, and now I want to reframe it. Kristi is not just shaped by the people around her, she's part of shaping the people around her, including children. Kristi's actions are the reason people see her as a symbol of bystander fascism, the kind of person who wants to do the right thing, but not if it's going to risk too much. In Kristi's very white and conservative community, in order for her to make a real positive difference, she would need to make herself uncomfortable. In fact, she would need to make her community members uncomfortable. Bonilla Silver calls this being a race traitor, because you risk some of your privileges in trying to tear down white supremacy as a white person. It would appear that in many meaningful ways, Kristi is not willing to do that, and I just can't help wishing that she would. I can't help but look at the times she has been reflexive and the way that she cares so much about justice and fairness, and give her the chance to change her mind.
This is, I don't think I went through it. I remember I did a little rant at the end where I was like saying it's not my responsibility to be teaching people. I hate that fucking mentality. I hate this mentality because you cannot change people. You cannot fundamentally change a person's way of thinking. You cannot. Like, I'm sorry. You saying like, I wish that she would, she's not going to. She's not going to. So just talk about the problem, talk about why it's wrong, and move on with your fucking day. You don't have to sit here and be like, but technically she didn't exactly say that because X, Y reason. Homegirl, she is not going to she is not going to kiss you. She's not going to say, oh my God, thank you so much for defending me. She does not give a shit. Peter Mon said this, like, actually, he has said this multiple times. RawBeautyKristi is probably looking at this shit and like being like, girl, why are you talking about this? Why are you bringing this shit up? You know, she had just gotten to the point where she can like obscurely, like a wallflower. I'm not here. Nobody sees me. I'm good. I'm posting. I'm still getting some money. Like, I mean, like, honestly, whatever. Let me keep on watching.
I just can't help but look at the way she talks about Trump, about ICE, about MAGA, about the environment, about homeless people and poor people, and not see those opinions as a possibility for growth in a leftist direction. I understand that she needs to right what she got wrong, but I have to remain hopeful that it's possible. Because Kristi is more than a symbol. She's a person. Yes, she's a public figure, but our parasocial relationships with people like Kristi are processed in our minds and our bodies like regular social relationships. That means the way we feel about Kristi affects the way that we feel about other people. That's how these things work. I think this is one of the biggest problems people have with my commentary, because many people do not want to see change from Kristi. They're adamant that it's not possible. She is who she is. She's always been this way, and she will never change. They want.
How old is this lady? She's like 30, almost 40, right? Kristi. It would take an extreme amount of pressure on her and on her family to actually give a shit and actually analyze, you know, the type of morals and values that she holds. Because to her, she is doing the thing just right. She is married. She has a kid. She owns land. You know, to her, she's not harming anybody. And as you said, her ideas are definitely harmful to a lot of brown and black folk. I have lived in this skin long enough. I have seen the shit that my parents have had to suffer long enough. You know, I know what it is to grow up poor. I know what it is to be poor. Thank be to God that I have never had to suffer from, you know, from food or clothing or anything, because my parents have shielded me very well from all of that. But I also know what the fuck goes on. I know what people say. I know how people act. I know what the type of mentality that it leads to, you know, share those types of ideas. I'm not going to sit here and say and probably agree with a bunch of people that like Kristi can't change. She probably can. You know, everybody's capable of changing. But there needs to be great, extraordinary pressure and circumstance for that change to happen. It won't happen just by itself, and it won't happen because somebody on the internet told you to do so. She does not give a shit. She can easily close her laptop, turn off her phone, and boom, she doesn't have to deal with it.
Want to punish her. A lot of people also told me that because I had made a mistake, I could never be trusted again. It's the same logic, and I think it's a problem, because there's no such thing as a perfect leftist. Integrity isn't about how good your understanding of leftist theory is. It's about commitment to growth and the way you respond to making mistakes. I have to be honest, I've made mistakes before. That's why I have an established reflexive process, and that process takes time. I practice being able to admit when I'm wrong, being able to change my mind. I practice empathy. I practice media literacy, and being able to tolerate the discomfort of hearing, reading, or interacting with people and ideas that challenge my own. This is what I expect of myself, and this is what I want for Kristi, because she has shown so many elements of this reflexive process before, and it breaks my heart to see that she's so much further away from us than before homeschool gate. This was the conversation I wanted to start, because after all the learning I've done here, the question still remains.
She's not you, though. You can't really impose what you use to become a good person, to become a better person onto somebody else, because you will be sorely disappointed. You are not like everybody else, and everybody else is not like you. You're a singular being who has their own ways of managing with themselves. You cannot impose that onto other people, you know? Like, I am also my husband, God bless his soul, my husband, says that a lot about myself, that I'm very hard on myself. And I'm like, yeah, I am hard on myself. And unfortunately, I do put that onto other people. And he's like, yeah, you shouldn't be doing that. You have to give yourself some leniency and also be able to give others leniency, because not everybody is like you. And I'm like, shit, bars. But, it's things that you do have to learn as you grow. I don't know how old you are. You look young, you sound young. We're probably the same age. And I'm not saying I'm better than you for believing this shit, but I will say that you also can't be imposing things that you do for yourself onto others, because you will be sorely disappointed.
What do we do with people like Kristi? What do we do with people who have dangerous beliefs? There are a lot of questions wrapped up in that one. Whose responsibility is it to deal with these people? How can we possibly bring them over to our side if they've believed this stuff? Why should we even
Why
want to
would
talk
I
to people
want
who have
them on
dangerous
my
beliefs?
side?
Well, I'm going to answer those questions, because it's time to talk about abolitionist activism.
Jesus.
The tools of swift and predatory justice feel good to use, familiar, move in the hand easily from repeated use and training, briefly satisfying. But these tools are often blunt and senseless. Unless we have an analysis of abolition and dismantling systems of oppression, we will not realize what's in our hands. We will never put the predator's tools down and figure out what our tools are and can be. My third unthinkable thought: why does it feel like we are committed to punishment and enjoying it? Why do our movements more and more often feel like we are moving with sharp teeth against ourselves? And what is at stake because of that pattern, that feeling? Why does it feel like someone pointing at someone else saying that person is harmful, and with no questions or process or time or breath, we are collectively punishing them, tearing them down, and anyone protecting them to shreds? Sometimes we even do this with language of transformative justice, claiming that we are going to give them room to grow. They need to disappear completely to be accountable. We are publicly shaming them so that they will learn to be better. Underneath this logic, I hear we are good and we are getting rid of the bad people in our community or movement. We are affirming our rightness and power. Knee-jerk call-outs say those who cause harm or mess up or disagree with us cannot change and cannot belong. They must be eradicated. The bad things in the world cannot change. We must disappear the bad until there is only good left. But one layer under that, what I hear is we cannot change. We do not believe we can create compelling pathways from being harm doers to being healed to growing. We do not believe we can hold the complexity of a gray situation. We do not believe in our own complexity. We do not believe we can navigate conflict and struggle in principled ways. We can only handle binary thinking: good, bad, innocent, guilty, angel, abuser, black, white.
Abolitionism is the movement to end slavery and all of its modern iterations. Abolitionists seek to end the prison industrial complex, and many of us seek to end policing as well. Abolitionism is framed by the idea that punishment isn't helpful. It isn't fair, and it isn't effective in making our societies safer and happier. The alternative is called transformative justice. You may have heard that phrase before, but you might be unfamiliar with what that can actually look like or what it really means. So I'm going to explain that through this part of the video by looking at how transformative justice can work within our own movement. There are two things I want to address in this section. One is the Kristi question. What do we do with people who have dangerous beliefs? And two, what's going on with public shaming and punishment on the left? And these two ideas come together in exactly the same way. There's a very clear playbook for insulting, rejecting, and brigading people online, and it's being used against people like Kristi, who have a lot of deconstructing and deprogramming to do, but also people like me, who are genuinely leftists in the pursuit of growth, accountability, and commentary. There were many productive comments on my video, and if you're one of the people who left some of those comments, I really hope you saw your influence in the first part of this video. But there were more unproductive comments. And I mean unproductive because over a period of 72 hours when I published that video, I found it difficult to eat or to sleep. The demands were that I delete my channel, that I delete the video, that I issue personal apologies to people I'd mentioned in my critique. Quite a few of the comments, including one of the commentators I mentioned, demanded that I compromise my anonymity in penance. The messaging was very clear. Because I had made mistakes in that video, I was unworthy.
I'm pretty sure she's talking about Peter Mon. Peter Mon did make, in his, I think it were like 3 or 4 response videos to that one particular video, which was crazy. But he did say that he found this whole like get up very stupid. I mean, he also did fall into the trap that I was talking about a little bit earlier, where he was like, yeah, I put my name online, and he's like, I don't really give a shit. I'm like, that's you. I don't give a fuck about the theatrics of this whole, I don't know what this costume. I fuck with theatrics, it's cute, it's quirky, it's whatever. But also you're putting yourself online and you're putting your thoughts and opinions online on a silver platter for everybody else to judge and critique on. And if you have a bad take and the majority is saying, hey, that was like a really shit take, my opinion be like, oh, where did I go wrong? Like, what the hell? I do agree that a lot of the time, or some of the time, some majority takes aren't the best. They can be harmful and they can perpetrate further nonsense. I do agree with that. But it's your own. It's up to you to really take any sort of criticism and like see, okay, this one is of value, this one isn't of value. And that's something that you have to learn to do if you're going to be online. It's about what you're willing to give your energy to and what you're willing to ignore, what you're willing to actually give a shit about, right? And the way that you handled it, disgruntled townsperson, I didn't like it. For sure. I did not like it. I didn't fuck with it. I thought it was kind of lame. I thought that you could have done a little bit better. Now, I would have done a lot more if this thing was completely reduced. You didn't talk about RawBeautyKristi at all because, as the other comment pointed out, you're talking about an article that was posted in 2002. And we're in 2026. 24 years have passed. Are we not learning? Research has to be. In my high school classes, my teachers were telling me, oh yeah, your research has to be factually relevant, nothing older than 2 years. 2. So if I wanted to make my case, my thing couldn't be older than 2 years. I'm just saying, if you want to be talking about relevancy and factuality, we have to make the information, up to date. It has to be up to date.
I should be ashamed. I was a bad leftist and a bad person, and I should be punished. And even though I am an abolitionist and I believe in transformative justice, which means that when mistakes are made, there is always a way to make reparations and move forward, I found myself giving in to these punitive demands. It was just so effective. I even took the video down for a couple of hours. Thankfully, I was able to step away and commit myself.
I mean, it's a little too early for this shit. Do I even begin? Okay, you know what? I want to say something, but I'm going to let this play out. Because as I was ranting on before, you can take what you like and leave the rest. You do not have to go out of your way and read all of the comments. A lot of these were like hee hee ha, in my personal opinion.
My video is actually very critical of Kristi, but it's also unbalanced, which you can tell from productive comments like this one. While I usually enjoy how you give people the benefit of the doubt and try to pin down the mindset that started their drama, I think this one kind of went over the line IMO. I feel like this video's premise of "is she MAGA" is a misguided way to approach the situation, as it turns it into a semantics battle and leads you to overanalyzing her words and life in order to prove her political leaning. Even if you didn't intend it, the contrast between the empathy RBK receives and the comparative lack of empathy given to the people hurt by her actions ends up giving this video a very "I can excuse homophobia, but I draw the line at getting the facts wrong" vibe. I just want to say this sentence alone
helped me so much to understand where I went wrong. So thank you to the person who left this comment. They go on to say, IDK, loved your shorts and lipstick lesbians deep dive, but this one's going to be a miss for me, dog. This is such a thoughtful comment. This person critiques my research question and the way that led me to a really biased and inadequate analysis. Their critique is clear and actionable. They also gave me positive feedback, which is really helpful because there are a lot of clear differences between my Lipstick Lesbians video and my RawBeautyKristi video. So by comparing the two, I can also start.
All right, so the vibe that I'm getting from this section is this is how to deliver constructive criticism, and this is how not to deliver constructive criticism. Again, when you're online, you put yourself in a situation where you're going to be judged by people that literally just love to shit on people. Nobody cares. The YouTube comments is for a place to people that actually, give their grievances. If you didn't like the comments, you could have easily limited them to like comments that you did like and could have deleted the others that you didn't.
To understand what went wrong with this one. Incredibly helpful comment. Let's look at one more of the unhelpful comments.
Your video is an appalling mess of mis and disinformation. The idea we need to extend grace and understanding when RBK has been
this whole like goofy voice thing to like further accentuate how you think that the comment was stupid. It's tired, like we get it. You didn't like a lot of the criticism that you got from it. And this one, your own leftist critique is so breathtakingly empty with microaggressions and dog whistles. This is a constructive criticism comment. They're telling you exactly where you went wrong and telling you how you could hypothetically improve the response. And also at the bottom, don't just demonize the video, remove it, offer a detailed correction and apology that is not monetized. Then step back and attempt to learn why people are dragging your ass. I would suggest showing your face as part of owning your shit instead of being a full intellectual coward. This is a valid criticism comment, in my personal opinion. Yeah, it's probably not worded the way that you would like it to be worded, and they're having a dig at your entire character. But at the end of the day, this is valid. A lot of people have been saying that your own analysis on other commentators, I was one of them, on other commentators was filled with microaggressions. You went after the fancy face. You went after, I'm not even gonna like sugarcoat that, you went after the fancy face and their, critique on RawBeautyKristi's own apology, quote unquote, video. And the way that you were like, oh yeah, they did, provide valid analysis on the Black experience, especially as a Black woman, but RawBeautyKristi, poor girl, she's out here having to deal with this, I don't understand.
fucking bigot for years. Your own leftist critique is so breathtakingly empty, filled with microaggressions and dog whistles, and really suggests you have no critical thinking to speak of. You very, very clearly do not have any understanding of American society, politics, or history. Your assessment of RBK and your responses have confirmed for me that I cannot trust any of your commentary or the idea that you actually research or think about anything you say. Don't just demonetize the video, remove it. Offer a detailed correction and apology that is not monetized, then step back and attempt to learn why people are dragging your ass. I would suggest showing your face as part of owning your shit instead of being a faux intellectual coward.
Okay. So this is a little piece of everything, and I chose it because it uses many strategies from the brigading playbook, which I can see in many other comment sections. This comment insults me, tells me that I'm an unworthy leftist, says that I'm spreading false information, and weaponizes the language of transformative justice against me. They also make the claim that I can never be trusted for anything I've ever said or will say, and they demand that I punish myself by removing any revenue as well as the video itself. They also instruct that
I do not like how they are using the whole transformative leftist ideology. I don't know what that means. I would need to do a lot of reading and research on that to like truly be able to say, they are, whether or not they're actually like portraying the theory and practicing it. I don't know. Um, but in the way that they are speaking, I do not like how they are using this situation to try and like shield themselves, being like, oh, I'm a transformative leftist. I believe in transformative ideology, whatever that means. Again, you can believe whatever the hell you want. You can't really force anybody else to believe what you want them to believe. It's just a futile. It's just futile. It's gonna lead you nowhere. Um, let's listen to what they had to say though.
That I remove my anonymity in penance. This is such a blatantly punitive comment that I'm a little bit shocked at how we got here. Once again, I refer to Adrienne Marie Brown and her book, We Will Not Cancel Us. We have to recognize that we are on dangerous territory that is not aligned with a transformative justice vision when we mete out punishments in place of consequences, and or when we issue consequences with no inquiry. No questions, no acceptance of accountability, no process, no time for the learning and unlearning necessary for authentic change, just instant and often unsatisfactory consequences.
You see, you're looking at this whole thing, in my opinion, wrong. With this like a little quote that you're giving us, it says we have to recognize that we are on dangerous territory that is not aligned with transformative justice vision when we meet our punishments in place of consequences. You deleting your video is not a punishment. It's a consequence of your actions. You misspoke and actually said things that have no substance to the way that the United States government is currently being run. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. And it really should not be anywhere near leftist ideology, in my opinion. If we're really going to be playing those games, it should be anywhere near leftist ideology because you're continuously portraying, in my personal opinion, a harmful narrative that leftists have to be in charge of other people and educate them in order for them to be good human beings and give a damn about other people and whether or not they are able to live in this society. It's not a punishment. It's a consequence on the fact that you misspoke. You did not do any research at all, in my opinion. It's not a punishment. It's a consequence of your action. Delete the video and, make another video. Not anymore. I really don't care what you have to say anymore. And apologize for the people that you actually did harm. And yeah, okay.
The kind of call-outs we are currently engaging in do not necessarily think about movements' needs as a whole. Movements need to grow and deepen. We need to transform ourselves to transform the world, to be transformed in the service of work. Movements need to become the practice ground for what we are healing towards. Co-creating. Just as I showed with my reflexive process in part 1, we need the help of specific intellectual and emotional tools to engage in effective activism. We need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. We need to be able to both give and take time before.
Again, the criticisms that you got made you uncomfortable, and that's why you're reacting the way that you're reacting. You are not taking the time to actually sit this one out and think and actually listen and reflect on the things that people were telling you. That last comment that you showed us, it made you uncomfortable and you chose not to listen to anything that they had to say.
Or we react. But there's a whole media ecosystem that flourishes on our reactivity. And I think it's part of why the leftist brigading has taken over. To learn how this happened, we need to go back a little bit to the beginning of print media. In the late 18th century, European printing presses began publishing outrageous stories about sex, crime, and humiliation called scandal sheets. Accuracy wasn't the goal with these stories. Often journalists would take insignificant personal or private stories and portray them as a major influence on society, exaggerating things until they were barely recognizable. All the way back in the 1780s, people were reading headlines like this: "Characters of the present most celebrated courtesans exposed, with a variety of secret anecdotes never before published." Sounds familiar, right? These are the earliest forms of tabloid journalism and sensationalist media. Tabloids work for two distinct reasons. One, they're shocking and they produce strong emotional reactions. And two, they are a form of gossip.
A public accusation, or at least the exposure of the culprit of a scandalous act, is at the heart of most tabloid stories. In other words, tabloids offer readers and viewers a massive experience of engaging in the titillation and gratifications of gossip as a way to express hostility and to pressure rule breakers to abide by communal norms. Another social function of gossip in tabloids, according to experts, is that by becoming informed.
Oh, this is actually a little bit crazy. Okay, in other words, tabloids offer readers and viewers a massive experience of engaging in the titillation and gratification of gossip as a way to express hostility and to pressure rule breakers to abide to communal norms. So you're putting yourself in the position of the victim of sensationalism, and they're saying that the people that are judging you and criticizing you are trying to make you fit in a box, is what I'm getting from this. That's an insane take to have. I'm not gonna lie.
Informed of the scandalous behavior of others, the self-esteem of media consumers is raised. Reading of the dysfunctions of others can make people perceive themselves as better, more respectable, moral, and law-abiding than the people they are reading about. This might be particularly true for groups of people who feel themselves unfairly diminished or disadvantaged.
Basically, when we engage with tabloid media,
Oh
we feel
my
superior.
God. That is a crazy take to have. It's such a great take to have. You were getting valid criticism on how you talked about everything that RawBeautyKristi said. I mean, I don't understand why you're taking this victim label and you're putting yourself in this victim position and making the commentators that criticize you your haters, your persecutors. I don't understand. Why are you doing that instead of taking this moment and being like, oh my God, wow, I think I did fuck up, right? Or if I said things that I really shouldn't have said. I criticized people that, in my opinion, were rightfully criticized, but I probably went by it in a really weird way. Their criticism of, commentary on YouTube and it being like sensationalist and all that, it's not new. I'm not gonna lie. I think I've had that idea and roaming around in my head a few times as well. But at the end of it, if there is any truth to the way that a lot of people are criticized in the commentary YouTube space, it's to show how am I even doing to describe? You did something wrong. You said things that are harmful again. People that are criticized in the commentary space sometimes are wrongfully criticized. I will agree with you that there are times where, certain people use this space to further their own agenda. But for the majority of the time, when those people have been exposed, there has been a further conversation on how to avoid doing any of that. So while I do agree that, yeah, there is some sensationalism, and yes, there may be some forcing of norms and whatnot. At the end of it, this is not the situation. No, it's just not.
area. So any political messaging from tabloid media becomes incredibly potent. Because tabloids trade in strong emotions, fear-mongering is one of their most effective and damaging tools. The role of exaggeration in tabloid reporting is directly associated with a feedback loop between sensational media and
I'm going to apologize. I'm going to put this on 2 times speed because I don't know how long I can sit here anymore. So I will watch this in 2 times speed now. I don't know why it's not in 2 times speed.
inflammatory political rhetoric that deepens social division. But not all tabloid stories are political, of course. Most of them are humiliating stories about sex or relationships or shocking stories about wrongdoing. Crimes or alleged crimes play a really big role in tabloid reporting. But beyond that, accusations of wrongdoing are usually enough to grab a reader's attention. But tabloids didn't remain in print media or even in the hands of media companies. They've been democratized since the advent of the internet. In 2004, 26-year-old Mario Armando Lavandera Jr. began his blog under the moniker Perez Hilton. Perez Hilton's blog posts would go on to define many of the pop culture conversations over the next decade and a half. His reporting was characterized by elements of sensationalism and was all wrapped up in derogatory nicknames and the punitive practice of sharing as much private information as possible to cause the greatest amount of humiliation. Perez was like a dog with a bone, harassing celebrities over a period of years for the same perceived faults, flaws, or character traits. It's not controversial to say that Perez Hilton dehumanized his celebrity subjects in his reporting. In fact, I would say it's common knowledge. Hello, editing townsperson here. I just wanted to say that I finished filming this video the day before Perez Hilton's very public and traumatic psychotic episode. I am incredibly saddened by his actions, and I'm also really upset by the fact that so many people encountered that with no warning. I have no ill will towards Perez. I really hope he's supported in his recovery. I also hope all the people who encountered that video are able to recover. My critique in this video is entirely concerned with his actions as a blogger and a media personality. One thing that became clear from Perez's online empire is that behavior in online spaces can be so much more intense than IRL because the balance of power is skewed. Researchers have found a specific style of text-based language use that has grown out of weaponizing gossip online.
A key finding in protecting identity and reputation studies is that people will deliberately use specific words to protect themselves while harming others, if it achieves a goal of preserving one's own identity and reputation.
And a key to understanding this as a power exchange is in the solidarity of the commenters under posts that use this kind of language.
The gossiping here shows solidarity amongst people by transmitting information about a person's identity and reputation, which influences our viewer behaviors. Setting up oppositional roles is done by the initiating author to present their view of the world as right, hence protecting them while persuading others to view the person being gossiped about to be at fault. This strategy is taken further when the gossip or rumor spreading involves serious accusations.
We think of Perez Hilton's aesthetic style for insulting and harassing people, his use of nicknames, the exaggeration, the way he shares private information, as gauche. As I mentioned earlier, I don't think it's controversial to say that Perez Hilton's style of writing dehumanizes his subjects.
I didn't even see celebrities as human beings in a lot of ways. I viewed them as characters in my soap opera.
But we don't seem to recognize this from our current commentators. Because all of this is still alive and well, it just looks a little different now. Drama and commentary channels dehumanize their subjects by using a moral framework to accuse people of being immoral people. And interestingly, it's easy for them to insult people in pretty much the same way that Perez Hilton did by simply framing their insults as a criticism of choice. I recently saw a drama commentator insulting Michaela Nogueira's skin, but they didn't just say that her skin was busted. They said her skin looked really bad, so that must be evidence of the fact that her skincare line doesn't work. Even though they started with the sentence, her skin looks really bad, they ended it by convincing us that they're allowed to insult her physical appearance because they're not actually insulting something she can't change. They're insulting her choice, her actions, and within that, her reputation. Broadly though, the exact same language and subject matter of 1780 scandal sheets are splashed all over YouTube drama and commentary thumbnails. Characters of the present's most celebrated courtesans exposed with a variety of secret anecdotes never before published is just yesterday's Gabby Hanna exposed by former fans. Everything about these thumbnails was present 100 years ago. Images of people at their ugliest, caricatures of their likenesses, the use of words like shocking, exposed, secret, predator, and abuse were all used in scandal sheets. The sharing of information that may or may not be true, that might be exaggerated, the subject of the story is insulted, humiliated, and punished, and we see that all reflected in the comments below. And the focus on controversial stereotypes, like homophobic ideas about gay men or sexist stories about women, they're all still present in drama and commentary channels, but now people are blamed for allegedly perpetuating those stereotypes rather than just ridiculed for representing them. Can you see the difference? It's a moral judgment on the stereotype itself, but the blame is still placed upon a person who is humiliated, and the stereotype still takes center stage. As an example, let's return to Kristi. Peter Mon is a drama channel who created an effective smear campaign against Kristi based on her alleged support of fellow influencer James Charles. I'm not going to rehash this entire situation because I spoke about it in detail in my original video. What I will say is this. Peter Mon used a phone conversation with Kristi to convince everyone that she's a duplicitous, uncaring snake. Her crime was following and liking some photos of an influencer online. This story is so exaggerated that I honestly can't take it seriously because not only has Peter recently confirmed the disclosure I mentioned in my original video, which negates the basis of this moral attack on Kristi, but he also keeps saying that she needs to apologize for the fact that she took 4 whole days to unfollow James Charles after their phone call. Mind you, in this phone call, Peter attempted to manipulate Kristi by indirectly threatening her. He confirmed saying that if she wasn't going to do the right thing, then she would face consequences, as though those consequences were inevitable and not his choice to continue harassing her. After this phone call, Kristi vowed to never again communicate with any drama or commentary channels, but Peter won't take any responsibility for this. In fact, he suggested in response to my deep dive that I should have reached out to Kristi for comment. How was I going to do that, Peter? You made sure she would never speak to any of us ever again. I literally couldn't get in touch with her. I tried. I bring this up because it's a great example of the power exchange described in the research about online gossip and tabloids. Peter has used specific words like the phrase supporting a predator and sometimes also private information like a phone call to position himself as a good person whilst convincing others that Kristi is a piece of shit. And I specifically like this example because it's
Okay, I think that this is just agree that it was a little not the finest moment in reporting, I guess, or like drama, but at the end of the day, it's drama. It's pure hearsay. I don't know, a ton of people who followed James Charles during the time, a ton of people engaged with James Charles during the time. It was during a time where the victims of James Charles were not being taken seriously. So in my personal opinion, it was a really horrible time. It was such a time. People weren't taking the victim seriously. James Charles was coming in with the, oh my God, the whole bi sister scandal. His apology, I don't know what to call it, admission of guilt video where he did say, I have actually texted young men before, and I apologize for that. Next time I will ask for their ID. He said that this is not about James Charles. You have a personal beef with Peter Mon that you could address differently. He has said multiple times he doesn't call himself a journalist. And I don't know if he felt some type of way. I really don't remember the videos. I need to rewatch them to like say, oh, whatever. It happened. It happened. I don't know. Piermont has the right to be mad at his friend because back then they were friendly. Um, so he has a right if he wants to call her out, right? I think she was during it was during the time where RawBeautyKristi was like about to give birth, or she gave birth, or she was, I don't even know. But I do know that she had shit going on. I can't fault her for that because again, as mom, the first few weeks of birth, I was lost. So, she might have also been completely lost in the sauce, not know what the fuck was going on. Um, it's just a bunch of hearsay. You can't put yourself in the position to like defend RawBeautyKristi. You also can't put yourself in the position to defend Peter Mon because at the end of the day, it happened.
It's so flimsy. But the reason this story has taken hold is because Peter's argument is a moral argument. He's saying that Kristi is immoral because she liked some posts from James Charles, but countless people still believe Peter's version of the story because he created the narrative and he mentioned it in over 25 videos. Since 2023, every time he's mentioned James Charles, he's mentioned RawBeautyKristi. And he won't let Kristi off the hook for it, even now, even after she's proven multiple times that she doesn't support James Charles because he's been crafting a narrative based on this moral framework for years. And you have to admit that was unreasonable to let go. The solidarity in his comment section reinforces this power imbalance, and the solidarity is real. People were coming to my video where I illuminated Peter's manipulation of the situation to tell me that I should apologize to Peter Mon for pointing out what he did using his own words. Now, Peter Mon isn't the same as Perez Hilton, but he's shockingly similar. Both of them are gay men who have used their platforms to mock mostly women. Both of them have spent years haranguing individual celebrities to create moral outrage that would justify their harassment. Both of them dehumanize their subjects by choosing only the worst possible aspects of someone's personhood or actions to represent them. Both of them have used their personal relationships with public figures to share private information or create salacious narratives aimed at ruining their reputation. And neither of them has ever taken sincere responsibility for any of this. Perez Hilton has apologized, but only because he's achieved absolution through accepting God. So I don't think that's a real apology because he thinks he got away with it. Oh, actually, you know what? There's one major difference between the two, and that's the fact that Perez Hilton was 26 years old when he started his blog. Peter Mon was 45 when he started his drama channel. Now, I want to be clear. Peter is not the only one who does this, okay? All of the drama channels and many of the commentary channels partake in this as well. And it's something that, we all navigate one video at a time. I want to be clear, I don't think there's anything unforgivable about this because people are always capable of learning and adapting their content and understanding more about the impact that they can have. I know some people see me in the
Pause, because Peter Mon and Perez Hilton, in my opinion, are a little bit different. Yes, they are gay men. Yes, they comment and gossip on other people, specifically women, because in the beauty world where a lot of the drama seems to happen, it's female dominated, women dominated. Wild because I've watched Peter Mon here and there, and the majority of the videos I watch, I do not hear him talk badly for the most part. If it hasn't like actually affected him, and he actually hasn't like been victim of it. For example, he did, say some pretty, I wouldn't say harsh things, maybe harsh things about Shane Dawson, because he did hear Shane Dawson say hurtful things about him back in the day. And even then he's like, okay, now it doesn't really matter. But like back then it really did hurt. I understand because yes, there are a lot of men in the drama sphere that love to shit on women and really say the wildest shit ever. So yes, there is some validity to that claim. My opinion, Paris Hilton and Peter Mon are like a little bit polar opposites. Maybe in the realm, but like in the way that they talk and the way that they express themselves about women. Yeah.
umbrella of a commentary channel, and I sort of leaned into that in my last video, but truthfully, I consider myself a video essayist, but I'm very new. This is my 6th video, and I'm still trying to figure out what I think the best way to talk about people is. I worried that my lipstick lesbians video was a little bit too critical. I wondered if I could have put in more about what they did well, and I think that informed some of the mistakes that I made with my RawBeautyKristi video, so I'm definitely figuring it out as I go along. This is not an indictment of every drama or commentary channel by any means, but Peter is a great case study of the modern tabloid because he's been very upfront about the fact that he doesn't care about ethics in his videos. He feels no moral responsibility whatsoever. So I really have no qualms calling him out for this because he responded to my critique, and this is what he said.
First of all, commentary channels would not exist if people didn't fuck up to begin with, okay? If you hadn't made this video, if Kristi hadn't fucked up to begin with, I would have nothing to talk about RawBeautyKristi, all right? I have never claimed to be an ethical investigative reporter. You got me fucked up. I don't know where you ever thought that. I never said I was anything but shit talking gossip channel. I've always said that. I've never claimed to be an investigative reporter doing massive research. That is not my responsibility. When we started drama commentary channels, we do fucking research, okay? We were covering shit like Patrick Star, Rolling Eyes, and me and Jeffrey Wall doing things at the same time. Kristi wanted to be part of that community as somebody with millions of subscribers, okay? She's part of the beauty industry. I was covering beauty influencers on YouTube. She's part of that, okay? I'm sorry she makes such shit moves, but now this is what I'm covering, okay?
I'm smiling under my hood here. It's actually such a blessing when someone else does your work for you. Thank you, Peter. You're right. That's exactly what I'm saying that you're doing. Please continue.
I'm a shit talking gossip channel. That's right. And I don't claim to be moral high ground. You want to call it virtue signaling, call it virtue signaling. I do not think I'm the moral compass of the world. She said to say that I'm virtue signaling, or I'm the moral high ground of something, or I'm the gatekeeper on this. I never claimed to be that, all right? Call that what you want. Call that narcissism, gaslighting, virtue signaling. I don't care. Put every label on me that you want. I will respond to it again. I will keep this going. I'm a drama commentary channel with this person on this video talking about virtue signaling and all. I don't know about all that, all right? I just don't. You know, people say, oh, you're
You really went after him though. In your first video, you really went after Peter Mon in a crazy way, in my personal opinion. Number one thing, if you're planning to enter a sphere, why would you put yourself target and shit talk about the people that are like at the top? Like you said, you're a beginner. Why would you go and enter this video and be like, I do not like X person's video. I do not like X person. I do not like how X person talked about it. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? I'm not saying like fucking kiss them and like, oh my God, boo, like, but no, but at least be like friendly and network. I'm sorry, that's the business side. And there's business going here. But like, you're new and you're putting yourself in this position where you're going to be attacked and like the spotlight on you from people that have a larger audience. And aside from that, you're going to have microaggressions in the ways that you try to defend the person that is wildly disliked. Crazy. Why would you do that?
narcissist. I might be. I don't know. Maybe I am a narcissist. Maybe I'm the biggest narcissist in the entire world. Maybe I virtue signaling all the time. I don't really know. To be honest with you, I don't even fucking know what those things mean sometimes. Okay, to use in the context of this word. This gal, she does so much word vomit. I don't even understand what she was saying half the time in her video. You know, Gabby Hannah years ago said, manage your expectations. And she's right.
Oh my God, not the Gabby Hannah. Okay, truly incredible, Peter. I couldn't have asked for more from you. Amazing. It's just such a good defense because how could I call on Peter to be better if he doesn't give a shit? Incredible. Anyway, so this is completely in line with tabloid journalists, by the way, because I looked this up. I was like, well, now I have Peter's response. I was wondering, do these tabloid journalists feel the same way? Well, this is what they think. Tabloid journalists defend the lack of ethics of their field by arguing that they are in the entertainment business. Therefore, ethics pertaining to fact-based information and the public good does not apply to their work. Alrighty then. Anyway, the other thing about Peter is that he threatened me.
You're looking real homophobic right now. You already look racist with your microaggressions towards black women in your video, all right? So I don't know what you're going to say in this video. If it were me, I'm just going to use some real good advice. I'm telling you right now, what you should come out and do is put a post up and say, I'm removing the video. This is not a topic where you can come back and revamp it. People are going to compare your first two videos. I already know people have downloaded this video, all right? They're going to compare your second video to the first video. I already know people are doing that behind the scenes. So you check it. I'm just telling you right now, all right? I'm calling in favors like you don't even know the people. I'm just telling you right now, okay? And I will interview police people online. And I will tell you the information I know, and that will be the moment that I do drop the video, okay? I'm just telling you right now.
The police? What are you talking about? The police, Peter? I mean, I get the threat about sticking drama channels onto me, but the police? Right after you spent like 5 minutes talking about how you and your family members have been doxxed because you put your face and your legal name online, and then you tell me that I need to put my face and my name online, and now you're talking about the police? I'm an abolitionist. I wouldn't do that to you, but what are you talking about? Anyway, all this works great because his commenters don't care either.
Peter Mon, I adore you. Keep speaking the truth. I understand he rambles in his content, but he has always been upfront that he is a drama gossip channel, and his viewers know that too. So you holding him to an academic standard is so strange to me. I'm really sad to see Peter being targeted again because of his integrity on the issue of James Charles and Kristi. I can't help but think he's specifically being targeted because of his age and sexuality. 54 years old, gay. At Disgruntled Townsperson, has Peter ever claimed to be an intellectual?
Okay, I'm not holding Peter to an academic standard. I'm holding him to an ethical standard. I called Peter Mon a public intellectual because I think that's part of the role drama and commentary channels serve. Not for better, but for worse. Because these people are giving morally or politically coded commentary. People look to them to form their
Yes, and Peter Mon was the first person to call out Kristi when it came to following James Charles, a person with allegations of, you know, of being a predator, of following and sharing, one second, sharing Maha related ideologies. He called Kristi out because he thought that Kristi was being or sharing dangerous information from Maya and told her, be straight up with your audience. Are you or are you not? So people know whether or not to actually follow you. Because which is not the dangerous part. At this point, nobody really gives a fuck about RawBeautyKristi or what she stands for. What was more dangerous and what was more angry at that time as a fan was that I gave her my time, I gave her my love, I gave her my following, right? Like I followed her, I saw her, I felt her pain when she couldn't, conceive, when she got pregnant. I was excited, like I followed her pregnancy journey. Um in in a way, yeah, it was like parasocial, and it definitely like this goes back to like having a conversation about parasocial relationships and whatnot. But at the end of it, when she did the whole like quote unquote apology or addressing or whatever the hell you want to call that video, it was so bad and it gave me it was heartbreaking. I mean, imagine you freaking stay there and you're like watching this lady's life unfold in front of you. Your life is unfolding with her in some weird way. And makes your day better when she uploads. And all of a sudden she is spewing the same rhetoric of people that hate you. That's my problem with RawBeautyKristi, right? And that's why your video made me upset. Because you're defending somebody that, believes in certain things that are harmful to people like me and others.
Opinions. The problem is that in following the tried and true strategy of tabloids, these channels are changing the way that we relate to the people they talk about, which affects our ability to empathize. Laura Duggan wrote that
empathy is important because it is directly linked to pro-social behavior and with having a sense of social responsibility that enhances the lives of both the individual and the broader collective, such as volunteering and participation in local projects and community events, as well as a high likelihood of avoiding engaging in antisocial behavior of all types, from rowdy public drunkenness and littering to causing harm to others.
Peter Mon dehumanizes his subjects by judging them only by their worst aspects, and his followers have formed a vocal brigade which he aims and fires at people inside and outside of the movement. He will simultaneously claim to be an activist and reject any responsibility for the harm that he causes. Interestingly, this flattening of all complexity is also present in the way that Peter's audience perceive him. He is not a person to his followers. He is a symbol. His identity makes him impervious to criticism and gives him a license to continue. That's why they often refer to him as a gay man in America and not just Peter. But what really worries me is how this impacts the media literacy skills of his audience. Many of the comments that reference Peter as a gay man under my video.
Say that again and actually think about it. Peter Mon is a gay man in America during an administration that wants to get rid of gay rights. Shut up. Shut up. What are you talking about? If we're really putting two and two together, who has a little bit more expertise in critiquing RawBeautyKristi? You versus Peter Mon. Because he understands the gravity of his words and understands what the fuck is going on in the government and the world and in the United States right now. Your lack of knowledge on what is going on in the United States and whether or not that's harmful to others and what the hell people are suffering from. Like that also informs your views. You can be an abolitionist, whatever the hell. You can have all these terms to label yourself, but at the same time, like it does nothing. It does nothing. I call myself a feminist. I read feminist literature. I read feminist theory. I try to practice that in my everyday life. Right? I look like a woman on the outside. May I identify as a woman? Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know. My lived experience further informs me on what theory doesn't. I can read theory, I can understand theory, but I will never really understand theory if I can't live life as a woman. And I do. So, you can sit here and be like, oh yeah, I want to defend Kristi. I did X thing wrong. But you guys are the real problem because you came to my page and told me to shut up and not talk about things that I didn't know. But guess what? I think I do know because I'm a leftist. That's what you're saying. That's what I'm hearing. It's crazy.
seem to be referring to his commentary on my video rather than the video itself. They don't address the content of my work, but they cover all of his talking points. This kind of response worries me because it speaks to an inability or unwillingness to evaluate information. I think tabloid-style commentary channels are making it worse. When you get your information from someone who also tells you how to feel about it, you forego the practice of coming to your own conclusions. Instead of watching videos to learn new information, people are watching videos to be told what their opinion should be. Media literacy is a practice, and it requires a skill called the tolerance of ambiguity. That's the ability to navigate complex situations without flattening them to make yourself more comfortable. There's a disturbing trend in these leftist brigades that shows people are unwilling to or even fearful of listening to things that challenge or do not represent their ideas. I get the feeling that people are fearful of hearing something that may influence them in an unwanted way. And within that, I see a great deal of unconfidence in the ability people have to evaluate information.
No, if people wanted to watch a video, and I do know that people do this. But if people wanted to watch a video and get informed on how they should feel about a certain thing, a lot more people would have taken the video and ran with it. But the fact that not a lot of people did speaks on that, on how much you sucked up.
On their own. I got so many comments on my video saying I didn't watch it.
I'm so glad I didn't waste my time to watch a video of you kissing up the RBK for 4 hours straight. Haha, thanks comment section. Looks like 4 wasted hours. I'm good.
Beyond that, there were so many comments that show a shocking lack of discernment, critical thinking skills, and literacy. These comments called my video a 4-hour glaze of Kristi. They claimed that I did no research and said that I was spreading misinformation. One of these comments actually included misinformation, even after they just accused me of spreading misinformation.
I never leave these as an XYZ comments, but as a trans viewer living in America, how dare you? How dare you tell trans people and actual trans allies how to perceive things going on in this country? Try. You clearly have no fucking clue about how fucking dare you. Kristi was aligned with an explicitly homophobic religious co-op. I don't care what Kristi herself has said. Her son had on a Don't Mess With Our Kids t-shirt. It's called a Dog Whistle Sweetheart. Maybe listen to queer and trans Americans instead of making yourself look a fucking fool. Shame on you.
Kristi's son didn't have a Don't Mess With Our Kids t-shirt on. One of the people in the float was carrying a handmade sign that said Don't Mess With Our Kids. Kristi's son's t-shirt had like a Bible verse on it. This is a real issue though. We're expecting Kristi to gain these skills after a lifetime steeped in propaganda and privilege. But why do so many leftists have really poor media literacy skills? I don't think everyone commenting on my video is stupid, by the way. As I said earlier, to be able to effectively learn new information and change your mind, you just have to practice reading, listening, and evaluating. I think we're stuck in a social media ecosystem that keeps us from changing our minds or admitting when we're wrong or practicing the patience and discomfort of listening to things we don't agree with. Nikki Atkins has an incredible video about all of this as well. I couldn't say it any better than she does here.
For our individual selves, I really want to encourage you to prioritize growing your cognitive flexibility. That's going to look like engaging in your community, but also diversifying your learning, right? Intentionally seeking out opportunities to have your perspectives challenged is very important. Caring for your physical body and your mind in ways that are stimulating for you are going to be very important. I know that it sounds silly, but continuing to challenge your brain is an important way that we promote cognitive flexibility.
A lot of comments on my video were telling me off for instructing marginalized people to approach and confront their oppressors in order to teach them to be better. They're also telling me I spoke for them. And I understand where people are coming from here, so I'm going to say this very gently. I didn't say that. And I would never say that. I was talking about Kristi, a public figure, as a symbol for this larger conversation about how we can interact with people who are falling down the pipeline to conservatism. I mentioned my own experience with a fundamentalist Christian to make the point that activism can happen in our everyday conversations. I don't think it's everyone's responsibility to change every conservative's mind all the time. But we all know that these conservative movements are much broader than just white people. I mean, there are many people of color who support MAGA in America, just like there are lots of people of color in Australia who support Pauline Hanson's One Nation. It's a scourge. That means that all of us have spaces in our communities where we could be having conversations that make a difference. But the other thing about RawBeautyKristi's story and her experience of online brigading is that privilege is not a straight line. The power exchanges are willy-wobbly, and they can change.
I think I sound like a broken record. You cannot change the way that people think. And I am not going to be engaging in harmful conversations, right? And conversations that could potentially put a target on my back, right? You know, I do not put myself, in my close inner circle is not filled with hateful people. Even in my, in my second circle, I don't even know, classmates and all of that, I don't think I've ever engaged with a classmate that has actively said pretty hunk things. So when would I be put in a place where I say, oh yeah, you know, this political commentator posted XYZ video, you know, maybe give it a watch. When the fuck would I say that if I'm not talking about politics? If I'm not talking about politics with somebody that hates my existence? You know, and further to add on, I don't think they would possibly take that in a good light, being like, why would we watch that person when they go against everything that I said, right? You know, we're not going to get anywhere when it comes to that. If we're talking about social media and you creating content, leftist ideology and leftist theory and, you know, and all of that, yeah, you can hypothetically reach somebody new and get them to change their mind. But now, with the way things are in the United States, it's dangerous. It's just dangerous. But again, I've seen a lot of relationships fall out because people don't know how to change their mind. You know, you can You can try, sure, you can try, and some people have tried and some people have succeeded. But there's a very big majority that has actually cut off their family off or cut off friendships because people wouldn't, listen. And still, like, fucking, I don't know how to say it in English. Um, like, hung on to their bigger beliefs. Let's keep on playing.
In different contexts. Yes, Kristi is a white woman and she is responsible for her role in her community. But in this situation online, after everything that I just talked about when it comes to the power imbalance of tabloids and gossip and online behavior, Kristi was being brigaded by hundreds, if not thousands of people. When I spoke about Kristi's victimhood in this situation and the victimhood of the people around her who were doxxed and harassed, I'm not going to take that back just because she's white. And even though she has stuff to answer for and she's yet to apologize, because I don't believe that anyone should be treated that way and I don't believe it's helpful. So I'm not going to take back my philosophy around activism existing in the way that we treat people and the opportunities that we give them to change their minds. That's a core pillar of abolitionism and transformative justice. And that's why I want Kristi to change her mind. I'm not forgiving her before this has happened. That's my expectation. And honestly, I question the helpfulness of our need for every single detail to be covered in every single piece of commentary. I know language is important and we should be as specific as we can be, but this need for every leftist to make a disclaimer at the beginning of everything they say is getting out of hand. I feel like we can't handle ambiguity. At the beginning of Adrienne Marie Brown's book, she has a really long foreword talking about how she changed the metaphors that she originally used in her essay because they made some people uncomfortable. This is the impact of perfectionism in leftist spaces. The simple truth is that no one can speak for everyone. Adrienne Marie Brown used metaphors in her essay that came from her experience of mental health. People responded by saying that her language choices didn't reflect the way they wanted to hear mental health being discussed. And I question if we've lost the ability to look at a text for its own merit within its own context and understand why it affects people in different ways without judging.
You have the right to have that opinion. You cannot choose to make other people believe that way. If you say something and it actually does harm another person and they tell you that they harm you, they give you that critique and you're like, oh, well, not everything is meant for you. That type of ideology is what the right says, with the term snowflake, social justice warrior. Yeah, with those terms, you're further, in a way, aligning with ideologies. Like, oh, I can't mask everything that I say. I can't, put a trigger warning and everything. Where have I heard that?
The text itself for being inadequate. I also think this perfectionism has led to a huge uptick in virtue signaling because everyone is under this microscope and their integrity as a leftist is constantly being evaluated. So the performance of saying the right thing at the right time is almost more important than the actual activism. Virtue signaling is the public performance of moral actions or opinions in order to gain social capital and to be seen as a good person. Virtue signaling creates incredibly empty commentary. It strips complexity from our activism and it makes us feel better. It also works really well as a punishment, which is what Peter did with Kristi. I think this is part of why our political affiliations function more like social identities online. There's no need to independently evaluate information because the comments underneath a post or a video will tell you who's right and who's wrong. So people aren't forming their opinions based on information. They're forming their opinions based on what perspective is going to get them into the in-group, because being in the out-group is kind of scary. People have assumed for a while that right-wingers are incredibly rigid in their beliefs, and that's part of why they socially ostracize and punish each other. Throughout the second half of the last century, sociologists researched right-wing community behavior, and they found that to be true. But more recently, research has been done in left-wing spaces as well. Papers by Leoz Migrod, J.J. Van Bavel, Andrea Pereira, and several others have found that rigidity of the right, which is what that assumption used to be called, is actually less accurate than what they now call rigidity of the extreme, where an exaggerated viewpoints and socially identifying with political ideologies turns into more rigid and extreme thinking across the whole political spectrum. One of the key pillars of this is identity. Dressed up as lived experience, we label ourselves and each other and use those categories to decide if people are worthy of speaking. A la Peter Mon, a gay man in America. But under the idea that lived experience is what creates credibility, the implication is that understanding and empathy isn't really possible. The underlying question is, how could you ever understand me if you haven't lived like me? It's a very rigid way of thinking and it keeps us so separate. When people claim that we should only speak upon what we know, I hear, I will not tolerate your process of learning. If you make a mistake, you make me angry and I don't want to hear it. It's perfectionism again, it's exclusionary, and it's
People gave you, their lived experience. They gave it to you as a method of reflection. They gave it to you because they wanted you to learn a little bit something new and reflect on it. Not you bringing this shit back and being like, oh, just because I didn't live it doesn't mean that I can't say anything about it. True. But when you're going and saying things that will actively harm others, great. Or defend people that say things that will actually harm others, crazier. We're gonna skip a little bit because I really don't care. We're gonna get to the final thoughts because right now I genuinely do feel like they're using leftist ideology and leftist theory as a fucking shield to defend their actions and their words, and I don't like that.
all of this up. We can agree that Kristi has a lot to answer for. She needs to make amends she needs to be reflexive. She needs to take responsibility. If she is to make a real earnest attempt at allyship, at being a race traitor, as Benia Silva would say, she's going to risk her own discomfort and her social standing. That's something that a lot of people pointed to in the feedback from my last video because I was missing that understanding and also that call for accountability in my video. And that was a mistake. But after all my research, I have to wonder, what could we have achieved if we had called Kristi out and in instead of dehumanizing her and pushing her further away? Yes, Kristi is responsible for her own words and actions, and she has so far been unwilling to risk her position in her community to make amends for her part in Homeschoolgate. I've talked about how our aggressive, combative, and judgmental way of dealing with conservatives makes us feel, but we need to consider how it makes them feel. If not for them, for us. Karen Tamarias is an American therapist who identified this punitive behavior in herself and then
Still, I don't care about RawBeautyKristi. If she wants to change her mind, she'll change her mind. I don't understand this need for you to call Kristi out and be like, hey, come to our side, come to our side. If the lady doesn't want to fucking move to the left, then let her stay where the hell she feels comfortable. She's been God knows how long she's been a Republican, how long she's been a conservative and have these ideas. I don't care. She's lived her life. She's been an adult and then she's lived and succeeded in those ideals. And I don't care. I don't care.
believe. So that is my updated critique on RawBeautyKristi, and that is also the philosophy that underpins my channel. If you take one thing from this, let it be that there is no perfect leftist, no perfect commentator, there is no innocent party. We all make mistakes and we can all learn from those mistakes. I've made mistakes in all of my videos, and I've learned and gotten better every time. I accept all of you into the movement to fight fascism, and the only conditions are these. You want to be here, and you want to be better. That's it. Thank you so much to all of my wonderful, mysterious benefactors. Patrons of the arts are not so easy to come by when you're
Okay. I'm not happy. I'm not really feeling it. I genuinely don't understand how you can still sit in front of your camera and just say the most wild shit ever. Like, what the hell? In my personal opinion, everything would have been even better if you did delete that video and, issue an apology. I did not mean for the way that I said things to come off any sort of type of way. Maybe this wasn't the type of video that I was planning to make. Maybe it should have been like a critique on the commentary of YouTube. Like, it should have been a critique on the commentary of YouTube. I don't understand why you had to bring in RawBeautyKristi and make her a sort of like figure of redemption into something that nobody gives a fuck anymore. RawBeautyKristi did a lot of like not so good things, and she was in a few controversies back in her day. She addressed them, she apologized, she went as far as not accepting PR from certain brands because she thought that they were harmful and wasteful. Like and then at one point she only accepted PR from like vegan brands and like brands that would reuse and reduce. I'm sick. Like she knows damn well where her priorities are. She knows how to engage and boycott and put yourself in a position and defend somebody that really does not want to be better, as well as won't be better. I mean, no hate, but like RawBeautyKristi is doing her own thing, living her life, and you just came here and reminded everybody of what she did. I think Peter Mom said this in one of his videos that RawBeautyKristi is most okay looking at her. You're like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, don't give me the spotlight anymore. And it's in a way true, right? Because everybody did forget about what the fuck she said and what she did. I don't know. I'm a little bit just like, why? Why would you do this video and just say things that you took no accountability. You didn't, you didn't even address the main problem, which is that people were telling you that you were being microaggressive and you didn't give a fuck. You did not apologize to the channels that you insulted. Like, even the 6 spins did like a better job of that, saying like, oh yeah, I was microaggressive in my comments, and I did not mean that to come off that way. Right? I just, I meant a whole different thing, whatever. No, just no. This was a waste of time. I'm not gonna lie, I'm just so confused. Like, why? Anyway, let me know what you think. Let me know. Let me know, because what the fuck did we just watch? Genuinely, I will see you all whenever somebody else walks up, because it's really insane. Goodbye.